Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Buddhaṃ Dhammaṃ Sanghaṃ Namasami. Before I start, I'd like to dedicate any goodness in my life and my practice. I'd like to dedicate that in memory of my father. He passed away 22 years ago today, October 4th, 2003. So yesterday we recollected him during his birthday, was yesterday, his birth anniversary, and then his death day was today. So Saturday night, and this is the last Saturday of last weekend of our 3-month rains retreat. This is the Vasa period, Vasa in the Pali language, and so it's following the monsoon season sort of pattern in South Asia, Southeast Asia, and it was a time of year that the Buddha established particular observances and rules. One of which is that we typically don't change communities during this period, and there's also other restrictions around travel. In particular, we focus, by tradition, we focus a lot on the study of the monastic rule, the monastic code, and cultivating all sorts of things that especially with a stabilized community without so much coming and going. We can put more focus on that. And also this last week of the Rains Retreat, we're observing 7 days of group practice. So for those of you who are obviously living here, this is, of course we know that, but maybe if you just dropped in for the evening. And so this is the end of day 5 of the retreat. So Lumpur Sutito this morning, because every morning he's been offering Dhamma talks, 8:30 in the morning. And this morning, and also yesterday a little bit, he mentioned Bhava Tanha. There's a Pali, here again some Pali scriptural words. So typically Bhava is most usually translated as becoming, becoming something, or being, or coming into being. These are probably the 3 most usual ways it's translated into English. And so what is it that we're becoming? And so it's there's many ways to reflect on this, but it's sort of forming an identity, coming into being, something that we believe ourselves to be, wanting to be something, bringing it into being. And so that's in the most simplistic way that I'd like to mention it. And that doesn't mean that we shouldn't become good at doing stuff, and that we shouldn't become a monk or a nun or become a school teacher or a parent or whatever. It's not saying that in the mundane sense of the word becoming, there's no problem. We can do those things. We should do those things, but things that we're drawn to, things that interest us, things that are there should be within the framework of the way we try to live. Obviously, it should be a wholesome element, and at worst neutral. So we don't want to obviously bring in things that are unwholesome states of being. These are also psychological, becoming psychologically, to become happy, to become really anything where we don't have it now and we want it and we want to get it, and then there's a sort of sense of completion or achievement that we're clinging to. So here again, it's not about never trying to do anything. As for instance, I got an email this morning from a good friend, good Dhamma friend, who just he had really studied hard to achieve a particular result on a study, and put in lots of wholesome effort, and it's something that's going to help him, and it's in his life, and he's a monk, and it'll also help him in his monk's life. And but he was saying that he hoped this wasn't bad to say, but he says, I feel a sense of pride, and it was to me, he didn't say it, but it's a wholesome pride. It was a sense of achievement. That sense of, okay, job well done. I did something. It's something that's wholesome. It's going to be helpful. It's certainly nowhere. It's in no way can it be harmful to somebody else. So, but he was just. There was a slight concern. Is this pride? Is this bad? And I wrote back very vigorously and said, not in my opinion. There is wholesome pride, that sense of doing something well, or here again, using that word I used a minute ago, mundane, in the mundane world. Yeah, to be something. Yeah, be good, be whatever it is. Whether it's just being a good person, don't be anything. You don't have to be something that we can put a label on. But it's that craving. So the way it's translated, and twice this week already we've chanted the teachings from the Dhammacakkappavattana Sutta, the teachings setting in motion the wheel of Dhamma. There's this translation, Pali English, that we chant. And when it goes through the three causes of suffering, one is craving for sense desire, is the first one. And so craving through happiness and through pleasure, through the six senses. But the second one is this bhavatana, craving to become. So it's a craving to become something, an identity that I've been speaking about. Oftentimes it's couched in sort of framework of past life, present life, future life, so that if we, when we think of it in that way, is that I'll be born into some other life form, whether that's a being that is seen or unseen, whether it's human or non-human, and that's certainly, for those of us who think in those terms and believe that, have confidence in that. Certainly that would be the dynamic, but it also, if you think of that maybe as more of a macro, but it's also just within this life, all the different things that we've tried to become. And as I mentioned a few moments ago, even just trying to become happy, to be a happy person, or to be seen as, to create an image of ourselves, to create an identity. Oh, he's like this. We want to maybe be seen. Oh, he's like this, or she's like that. Well, they're very diligent, and all those things might be true. The labels that might come up. But what are we doing internally? Are we trying to manufacture these things, or is it just a natural arising? Maybe the expressions of our personality, the expressions of how we live our life, just going about our day. So we have our habits, we have our personality. Personality is formed. It's a creation according to when we were born, where we were born, what our upbringing was like, what kind of education we received. All the various things. The days and nights for however long we've been alive. It shapes our being at this moment. And we've developed habits, and some of them are wholesome habits, and maybe there's some that are not so wholesome. And it's a flow. This life is a real flow. And so, but if we are intentionally manufacturing an image of ourselves that we want to either to believe in ourselves or somebody else to believe in, or both, this is when we're forming an identity, like, oh, I want to be seen as. And at least in my own experience, because I know I've done this. I'm speaking from experience. And I've done this in several forms in my life. And so, but most of them, it was that I wasn't aware of until after I really took up meditation and Dhamma reflection. And then I was like, wow, that's what I was doing. And then to do it, to keep doing some of those things, even in the, like living in the monastic form. So putting on these robes and shaving the head there's not this sort of pile of Bhava out in Chithurst Lane. It just drops out of our being when we come here. It's habitual. These are sankharas, habitual, conditioned ways of being and wanting to be. And so, and it's funny, like just here again, I'm going to use examples that either I've done myself or other people have shared with me. So it's not me looking at other people saying, oh, they have Bhava. Okay, I want to put that out there right now. I'm not accusing anybody of Bhava. That would be pretty ugly. But just even in monastic life, like maybe we want to wear our robes in a certain way to kind of be seen to be different. Oh, I don't want to be like that. I want to be different. Or we're sometimes, because we have so few belongings and it's very limited, maybe we might get overly focused on the color of our robe, or maybe we want to have a better alms bowl, or we might fix up the bowl stand in a way that's somehow better than, this is better than the other ones. Well, it might be better if it's stronger, if it's more durable and more long-lasting. Yeah, that would be a better bowl stand. But if we're trying to impress somebody or be impressive, and so especially the being impressive, so that is becoming. That is a form of being. That's why that's a very good translation. This striving to be. Maybe with other expressions, because we're all wearing the same clothes, but it's here again, maybe somehow expressing ourselves or wanting to be seen as better than, or the way we walk, or the way we do something, the way we sit. I know. In my earlier years in monastic life, I wanted to sit in a way that was telling people I was a good meditator. Right, just I'm going to sit really straight, and I'm not going to move, and I'm going to look. I want to look really bright and alert, and not knowing, that trying to impress, trying to be seen as, and these are some little mini, maybe not so many forms of bhava. Trying to have people think of us in a certain way, and. Sometimes you can have occasions where it's good to be seen as something, but it's where the rub is, where the problem is that when we're believing that that's what we are. So it's the belief, that sense of identity, identification. So the story, and I've told this before, so forgive me if you've heard me tell it before, but my last year in lay life, I went to Thailand with my partner, my then partner, and we went out, and we were staying in this little coastal village, and we knew about this restaurant, that if you went through this fissure in the rocks, you could get to the restaurant, and if you could find the crack in the rocks, it was a great restaurant, but we couldn't find the crack in the rocks, so it was low tide, so we walked it. They said at low tide you can walk around the rocks. So we did that. And we had a lovely dinner. Tide came in. So we thought, no problem, we'll find the fissure in the rocks. It's in the guidebook, and we know it's there. Couldn't find it, so we thought, well, we can make it. I said, come on, we can make it. So the tide's coming in, the waves are getting bigger, and we're going around out in the sea, walking, and it was getting higher and higher, and then all of a sudden we're getting engulfed in waves, and my partner, she actually fell down and was being pulled by the waves, and I grabbed her and she grabbed me, and we grabbed rocks, and it was a really, really scary, dangerous moment. And my partner was starting to panic a little bit, and I wanted to panic. I really wanted to, but I thought, if we're both panicking, there's a really good chance somebody's going to die here. So I intentionally put on an identity. There was a little, it was appropriate for me to put on something that I really wasn't. I was panicking inside. I was feeling very frightened, but I thought, just put on a brave face, act like you know exactly what's going on, how you can fix it, you can do this. So this might not be the best example, but there might be appropriate times to maybe conjure up, to manufacture an image. But the difference is that we're not clinging. It's to not cling to that as a who and what we are. It's that bhava, that becoming, and then the next, like if you're using the 12 steps of the dependent origination, which is it's like a little roadmap how you get from ignorance to suffering. And it's going through these different stages. And so when you want to be something, you're sort of thirsting to be something, then that leads to feeding that, you're kind of putting more effort in, and then it's starting to become, and then the next stage is birth. And that's the belief. That's the belief in the actual state of being. That state of, that becoming has now matured into birth. I believe this is what I really am like this. This is what I am. However, because of the Buddha's trying to get us to reflect on the transient nature, the empty nature of all things. There's no core essence in our being. So because of that, there's a flow, and there might have states of being we're coming into, but they're impermanent. So even if we were to become something, some identity, it's also impermanent. Clinging to identity is also a sense of conceit. So identity, in Buddhist psychology, so it's not conceit as in conceited, like the way we use in English. It's often referring to an inflated sense of self. But conceit, in the way it's used in this tradition, is really just any sense of I. It's I am. So, here again, it's not the mundane sense. It's not like we should stop using personal pronouns. Please don't do that. Okay, we still have language. We can get through our day and we can say, oh, I have a meeting, or I'm hungry, or whatever. This is just a convenient use of language. Convenient use of labeling, but it's the belief that we have a everlasting, unchanging essence, core sense of I am. And so if we can see through that and just live with that here again in the conventional world, that I, the sense of I, comes and goes. So if we say ourselves, I want to be happy. I want to be a happy person. I want to be a good monk. I want to be a this. I want to be that. And if we are starting to kind of gel around that, and this is what I am, or I am a good chanter. Okay, so I know, especially in my earlier years of monastic life, I had this sense of, I'm a good chanter. I'm a good chanter. So then you believe that, and then all of a sudden you're chanting. Your voice box, your vocal cords are getting older. You can't keep the pitch. Can't maybe the throat, whatever. And I thought, oh right, well, where did the good chanter go? So after jati, birth, so we got becoming, and then birth. And then in the 12 steps of dependent origination, then it's sorrow, lamentation, pain, grief, and despair, death. So that sense of I that we believe in, when that fades, or it's challenged in some way, maybe somebody, they're better at this than me, then what happened to our becoming and birth, our sense of self, our identity dies. And then that's suffering. Or trying to maintain an identity. And that expression, keeping up appearances. Keeping up appearances. Right? We create a sense of self. Maybe we're projecting that outwards, and then we need to maintain that. That's suffering. And belief in what we become, what we think we become. This is stressful. So that's why I quite like, because I think we're all aware that there's a whole basket of words that we can use as translations for dukkha. And this is when I like using that, like internally. I like being able to just kind of hold all of them at the same time, because there's different times where different translations work. And I really like, in this sense, the translation stress. It's stressful to maintain things, to kind of keep ourselves buoyed up, our psychological sense of self. That's suffering. That's stressful. It's impermanent. It's unsatisfactory. So meditation. So this, we've all been meditating, whether we've just been meditating this evening for half an hour, or whether we meditate every day and we're doing this retreat. And so using all the mindfulness, all the calming, to be able to see these obstacles to happiness, actually I don't like to use that word, obstacles to our well-being, obstacles to that unshakable peace that the Buddha was pointing to. So maybe we're not generating, maybe Bhava is not a habit of ours. But to know that if it is, it's through all this stilling, all of the settling, all of the seeing clearly. And then if there is an impulse of Bhava, of this becoming, so this craving, we want to be something, we get this idea, we want to be something, it's based on thinking, this happiness, this will be a happiness for me. Becoming, so we get the first thought, get the desire, we feed that desire. This is how do I get this? You're feeding it, and then giving it fuel. Then we're getting closer, we're edging, we're leaning into it, nearly there, the becoming, birth, achievement, identity, success. And when that's challenged, if that's challenged, sorrow, lamentation, pain, grief, and despair. And these cycles can happen, super quick. Sometimes they're slow, sometimes they're quick. They can be almost like lightning. And then if looking at it within this lifetime, and then if there is this previous life, present life, previous life, present life, future life, then it's, if we can cut that stream in this life, then it takes care of the next life. But instead of just waiting, excuse me, I just had to change posture. Instead of only looking at it as a future biological life, to see these impulses, because these are the impulses that carry us through into the next life. So all these different psychological lives, emotional lives that we go through. Now, does that mean we're trying to cut off emotion? No. Emotion is just part of the human package. It's part of the human package, but how are we relating to emotions? If we're experiencing, maybe identifying with being prone to or particular emotion. I'm a happy person. I'm a joyful person. I'm jolly. And if we form an identity around those things, that's the problem. It's not the just sort of more conventional use of that. maybe that is our habit, but we just say, oh, that's my habit. Just seeing these as habitual formations that are coming and going. The phrase that comes up, to cut the stream of becoming. And then we can just live, really live freely, within the sort of framework of our temperament and our personality that I was speaking about earlier this evening. Nothing wrong with that. According to our moods, our energies. Just allowing ourselves to live very freely in that way. But as I was reflecting on about 10 minutes ago, using the meditation to be aware if this arises. If this arises. And when we see it, if we see it, to not beat ourselves up, not think that, be glad, take heart, feel joy. I would suggest, if we can, say, oh, aren't I glad? I'm glad I've seen this. This is good. This is good to see. And just if that impulse of bhava is spot, or any of these things, any sort of unwholesome, unhelpful mind state, psychological state, is, we don't need to kill it. But what we do is we understand it, and we don't grab it, we don't believe it. It's just seeing it and letting go. Or like in Ajahn Chah, like reading the books of his teachings, and that to know and to let go. So you know the impulse and let go. Just let it flow. You know it for what it is, and you can even just be glad we've seen it. Let it go, and just that much. It doesn't take hold. It can't set down roots. It's like the spark leaving a campfire. If we've cleared around the campfire, cleared away all the dry leaves and pine needles or whatever, the spark it doesn't do anything. It's just a spark. Even if it lands on us, if we're sitting too close and it lands, it might hurt for a few seconds. But we just brush it off. It's gone. It doesn't start a forest fire. It has nowhere to go because of mindfulness. So there is a way out. And that's when that, reminds me of that phrase, mindfulness, the path to the deathless. Or Lumpur Simedo, sometimes they say, the escape hatch. Mindfulness, the escape hatch. Yes, it's seen, seeing clearly for what these things are, and then has nowhere to go, no fuel. So, I think I'll leave that there. We've been sitting and walking every day, and so I think probably our knees wouldn't mind a different posture. So I think I'll just leave that for our encouragement, and if anything is useful out of those words, use it, and if it's not useful, just leave it aside. So.